So what motivated the English to show up in South Africa per se in the 1800s? You said it was in the aftermath of Napoleonic Wars, but it was part of the colonial expansion, no doubt.
Yeah,
it's a trade issue as well, I presume.
I think it's all of that. It was part of the British expanding the British Empire, the strategic importance of the southern point of the African continent, especially in terms of trade. That was before the...
Well, and the richness of the land. There's gold. Was gold discovered by then?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah. And so they settled, which led to the great event in our history that many people say is the event that during which we became a people, which was the Great Trek. So some of the Afrikaner people or the Dutch-speaking peoples in the Cape at the time felt that they cannot be governed by another nation. They were very, very aggrieved by the idea that someone came in from another continent and
took over.
Yeah. And they wanted to be free. And so they eventually opted to move into the interior of South Africa, which was a very dangerous thing to do because people didn't know what they would find in the interior. They sent in some, what they call the commission track. They sent in some scouts and actually the scouts came back and said that they found some people in certain areas, but largely speaking, there were vast open tracts of land. Because what's also important, this is again why the history of land ownership is so complex. That was shortly after the Mfecane genocide, which was a genocide. Some figures estimate that about 1 million people were killed as a result of Zulu expansionism and a conflict between the Zulu king and Mfecane or Msilikatsi, who was I think he was a soldier in the Zulu kingdom, and he eventually had the Matabeles or the Ndebele people. And it was expansionist wars, and it spread out throughout the southern part of Africa, and there was mass extermination campaigns. So the scouts came back and they said in some places they found peoples living, in some places there was just no one, and in some places they just found bones, skeletons.
So there was evidence that there was good reason and possibility to get the hell away from the English and move the British and to move farther north and into the central parts of South Africa.
Yeah, towards where...
What sort of size geographical area are we talking about?
South Africa is about twice the size of Texas. So it's a pretty big country. Compared to the US, it's small.
Right.
You could say it's the size of Western Europe if you take away Spain. So it's a pretty big country.
Right, okay. So there was plenty of northward geographical area to move towards.
Yes.
And how many Boers, what year was the trek?
The 1830s.
1830s. And how many Boers participated in the trek?
I think about 2,000, if I recall.
Okay.
It was a fairly small group initially.
Right. And they used wagons and moved
wagons,
like that?
Yes, ox wagons.
So it's kind of like the settlement of the American West in that way.
Very, very similar. The Afrikaner story is remarkably similar to the American story. It's also, we had our wars with the British. It's remarkably similar. Our interactions with local communities, the track towards the interior. It's a fascinating story. Just how comparable it is. Also, culturally speaking.
Right. So, there was plenty of vacant land in the Western U.S. when the pioneers went westward. There was occupied land as well. There's still plenty of vacant land in the Western U.S. Like plenty, although a lot of it's desert. And so I suspect that, although I don't know this for sure, but I expect that there was more habitation in North America than there was in South Africa at that time. I guess I really don't know because I don't know how extensive the Bantu settlements might have been. But you said that was also complicated by the fact that there was a genocide and that many, many people were wiped out. And of course, the situation in North America was complicated by the fact of the mass deaths that were a consequence of the illnesses that spread across North America, like a plague, actually like 3 plagues. And so, well, all that to just say how complicated these things are. Okay, so these 2,000 people spread north, and then what was the consequence of that?
So they, again, going back to the issue of conflict versus cooperation, there were many examples of cooperation and treaties, dozens of treaties that were signed with local tribes cooperating, but there was also conflict. And one of the most significant, or the most well-known battle was the Battle of Blood River, which was when the Voortrekkers, as they were known, which essentially means pioneer, also another similarity. It means those who go out ahead. They were known as the Voortrekkers. And so they had conflict with the Ndebele people of Msilikatsi, this soldier from the Zulu who was part of this
So he was a rebel in the Bantu.
Yeah. He had conflict with the Zulu king, and
Okay.
and then they also had conflict with the Zulus. And one of the battles, I should just mention this in passing, was the Battle of Vegkop, where the voortrekkers were attacked by the Ndebeles of Msilikatsi. But it was an ambush; they didn't expect it, and so it was men and women and children who had to defend themselves. And it's an important part of our story, because the women were there in the field next to the men with their voorlaaiers, as they called it, these front-loading rifles, the very sort of primitive guns that they had at the time.